Welcome to Tracy Erin Talks, where functional medicine meets personal development. You want to be living your best life, but the overwhelming amount of health information out there is keeping you stuck. And the way you think about yourself is keeping you stuck too. As a women's health specialist, my aim is to simplify and equip you with the tools you need to be beautifully balanced from the inside out. Welcome back to Tracy Erin Talks. Today, I'm really excited to have my friend Amanda May on the podcast today. Something funny about Amanda and I is that we met years ago, but only in person last month. So we have been internet and Instagram friends for many years. Her and I did similar training. And when I entered the business world, for some reason, her name popped out to me and I started to follow her and stalked her and eventually got the courage to private message her, and we became fast friends because she was so kind to help me with all of the nuts and bolts and the questions of how do I get started and how do I run a client meeting and what do you do with this? And so I just have so much love and affection for my friend Amanda today. So thank you for being here.
I'm happy to be here, spend time with you.
Awesome. We are going to dive into a really fun conversation all about mind, body, spirit release, which is something that Amanda Mays does with all of her clients. But before that, let me introduce her. So Amanda is a child of the sun and sun, one with an O and one with a U, wife and mama of 6. All the applause goes to you. I have 5, so we both run big, busy households. I love that. She holds board certification as a holistic health practitioner, integrative health practitioner, and mind, body, spirit release practitioner. Her teachings emanate from her extensive education in Ayurveda, herbal medicine, holistic healing, homeopathy, quantum biology, and muscle testing. She is a manifesting generator, which is fun because just last week I interviewed Megan and we talked all about human design, and one of the 5 types is manifesting generator. So I love that that's here in this bio. She is an INTP, 5-wing 4, Pitta Vata, introvert and seeker. She's been curiously exploring a holistic lifestyle for 30 plus years. Personally, she loves coffee, houseplants, and whales. Staying grounded is the cornerstone of her well-being. Things that help her stay grounded are her family, her dog, sunshine, knitting, and podcasts. Like everyone else, she's a complicated web of experiences, more than the sum of her parts, and has been told her lighthearted approach is appreciated by clients far and wide. So I love that. I'm glad that you're here today, Amanda. So I have introduced you professionally. Let's get personal for a second and tell me, what is it like to have such a big family with 5 kids in the home?
It is a lot of laughter, a lot of laundry, with a healthy dose of chaos.
That sounds about right.
No, I mean, they're, so let's see, I have 3 still left at home, 3 that have homeschooled, graduated, and have started their careers and moved out. So it's, and they all live very, very close to me. So they're still here all the time. And I never wanted to be a mother. I was never one of those women that thought, I have a clock and it's ticking, and got pregnant. And I held that first baby, and I remember looking at my husband and I said, I think I want 5 more of these. And he took me at my word.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's honestly, it's been the best part. The best thing I've done in my life is my kids. I call them my lighthouses because they just, yes, they're demanding, and yes, they text a lot, but they give me hope for the future.
Mm-hmm. How many boys and how many girls?
So I have 4 girls and 2 boys.
Okay. All
Mhm.
right. So you're technically halfway with 3 in the house and 3 graduated, but is there ever a finish line for mothers? It's like the work that
No,
never
because
ends.
well, let's see, the third, my 19-year-old will start law school, and so dealing with that. And then, grandkids and all these things, right? It's just, I don't think that there's a finish line.
It's just a different
Yeah.
season.
It's a different season. And I do think it motivates me to take care of my own health and to make me a priority beyond, the massage or the mani-pedi on a Saturday. It's the, working in my foundations every day so I can show up to be a better person for them.
I love that.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, tell us a little bit about mind, body, spirit release and what it is, how you use it with your clients. And then I would love to dive into my own personal experience with you as we had this done, or
Mhm.
how do you say? We had
Get it,
our
that's
time.
it.
We had a session a week ago. So my mind is still reeling from all of that. So I'd love to talk about my personal experience. But why don't you go ahead and share what is mind, body, spirit release?
Mind, body, spirit release is the brainchild of Tracy Southwick. She came up with all of this stuff, and I would love to spend an hour with her just picking her brain to figure out how she put all the parts and pieces together. Because if you see me do a clearing, you would see it's charts upon charts of emotions, limiting beliefs, neurotransmitters, all the things. Um, but the idea being that your subconscious was formed. Some people say, by 5 years old, most people say 7 years old. I tend to go with the 7 years old. And there's trapped emotions, there's negative imprint, from emotions. There's limiting belief, like maybe when you were 3, your parents were fighting and you didn't really understand what it was, but you took it on as like, oh, this is because of me, whatever it is. These things create ripples, and since our subconscious is what runs the show on a day to day, you think about, I don't know, you have an exchange with somebody at work and maybe they were just busy, but they gave you a very curt or short response. And the impulse, I mean, it's not even an impulse. It just happens. Your subconscious takes over and you're like, oh, that's right. They don't like me. Or, I must have upset them somehow. I wonder what I did. And you just start this runaway train of ruminating thought. And none of them are very kind or positive toward
Mm.
yourself, right? So that's what mind, body, spirit release does. Like it helps to create a sense of calm and peacefulness in people. I love it because it makes you become aware of the behaviors that are driving your
Mm-hmm.
right. So it has helped me create a healthier relationship and communication about what's going on with me, with my husband, for example. And I just feel like some of that emotional baggage is lessened. That's the biggest thing for me. And so there's a wonderful book called The Untethered Soul. I believe the author's name is Michael Singer. And it comes up a lot as an action step in a clearing. And he has this great analogy. Some of us are old enough to remember vinyl records and record players. But those ruminating thoughts, those limiting beliefs, and those things that are just not helping us live our best life emotionally, physically, spiritually, they're like that needle on the record player, and it's in the scratch, and it just it keeps making that same thing over and over. And so I tend to think of mind, body, spirit release clearings as picking up the needle and moving it to another groove so that we can pave a new pathway with our subconscious that's more positive and uplifting. And I mean, everybody has a different reason for wanting to do a clearing. So for some people, it is very, very much emotional trauma, big T, little t, limiting beliefs. But there are other people, they want to use it for physical health. They want to move blocks that are keeping their thyroid from, operating functionally. So whether mental, emotional, physical, I just think of it as picking up that needle on the record player and moving it to the next track.
It's like getting unstuck.
Yes, absolutely.
When we
Mhm.
find ourselves in the rut of constantly thinking same thoughts, constantly experiencing same symptoms, it picks that needle up and moves us
Yes,
somewhere.
absolutely. And it's funny because so I originally studied English and French literature, and I'll never forget this professor was talking about Wordsworth and the Romantics. And the idea was that you start at this point, and then the goal is that you spiral around this point, and maybe those spirals start to get bigger, start to get bigger. So you keep having these experiences, but you keep coming back, back, back. And so when I discovered mind, body, spirit release, I thought, oh, I don't know if I want to keep spiraling around that. I want something better. I hate to say better because that, but I want something that's more positive and is
Yeah,
going to help
something
me.
new.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So how did you find MBSR?
I found MBSR through Instagram.
Did you do your holistic training, your holistic practitioner training first and then found the mind, body, emotional stuff, or was it the other way
Yeah.
around?
Yeah. So mind, body, spirit release came after. I did a lot of training and studying in Ayurveda, and you know, it's a true holistic approach, right? You're depending on what your dosha is, when you walk after a meal, how long you walk after a meal, what you eat. I mean, it addresses the physical, but it also addresses the mental, emotional, spiritual differently, of course, in mind, body, spirit release. Um, but trying to talk to people about Ayurveda, like, wait, what? Especially where I live in South Louisiana, it's just
Mm,
nobody's heard of it.
yeah.
Um, and I was like everybody else, came across something, a reel, or I don't know what it was, it's somebody's story on Instagram. It was a story. I clicked through, it led me to something, and I had a couple of clearings. I thought, well, this is pretty awesome. And so I started communicating with Tracy, and she has a place in the Heights, the neighborhood in Houston called Heights of Health.
Okay.
And just going all through their website and their social media, and decided that it was the thing that I needed. And the reason being, in my own health journey, I could always get so far with the protocol and feel better, but I could never get to the finish line. Like, I
Mhm.
kind of hung out at the water table, like, just keep giving me water. I'm going to talk to you. But I never
Mhm.
got past the finish line to get the ribbon. So, the I paid for 2 clearings with somebody, and then I signed up, and I had a clearing with one of Tracy's practitioners. And as she's clearing my emotions. So if you have never had a clearing done, one of the first things that we do is we go through our emotional state charts. And so it's just right up there at the beginning of your appointment. And she comes up with the word shame.
Hmm.
And I just thought, like, I started crying because I
Wow.
felt
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah.
Um, because it was it hits exactly what I had been experiencing,
Mhm.
but I had never put a word to it. Like, I had never been able to say, it's this, it's this. It was just a lot of chaos here and a lot of chaos here from my childhood and stuff. And when she put the word shame on there,
Mhm.
yeah, I just felt everything kind of coming into focus. And so I had a few clearings. They were game changers. And I thought, if this has had this much impact on me and my physical health, like, you just take the rest
Okay.
of it out, and it's just on the physical um, health. How many more people are in my situation?
Oh, yeah. Like they say, you can't have a healthy mind and a sick body, or a sick body and a healthy mind, or a healthy body and healthy mind. Yeah, they're too intertwined. They are not separate like our Western minds like to do.
Right. And I mean, I had been working with clients, and I'm sure you might see this in clients, that there's just those patterns, those thought patterns that keep coming up, the same verbiage, right? Every
Mhm.
time you talk to them.
Mhm.
It's like the idea of if you have a diagnosis
Mhm.
and you attach yourself to that diagnosis, it becomes, I'm a fibromyalgia person. I have fibromyalgia. I can't do this. I have
Oh, yeah.
fibromyalgia. It's going to hurt because it's raining today.
Mhm.
And so learning to be able to create space between the diagnosis, whether it's a physical one or the mental state or the emotional state that's keeping you out of balance, it's huge. I see it do great things for clients.
Mhm. Yeah. So walk me through how a session works. What does the clearing look like?
Well, the first time I do it during first time one, it can take 75 to 90 minutes. And I don't need, my client to be on the phone the whole time. If it's a person that's working with me for their first time, when we schedule their appointment, they give me they fill out a sheet for me that kind of tells me what's going on with them and what they hope to get out of it. How do they want to feel about whatever their situation was? And we hop on a really quick, maybe 15, 20-minute video call because I'd like to put a face to a name and make that connection because we do use muscle testing for mind, body, spirit release. And they can stay on the call and watch me if they choose. It's not very exciting. I'm flipping charts and writing things down. But most people choose to get off and go about their day because they have to drive a kid somewhere or there's a swim lesson, whatever it is. And I go through and I do the clearing. What we do discuss on the call is the intention because I think that the effectiveness of a clearing is because of the effectiveness and the conciseness of an intention, right? You may come at me with 5 things, but we need to work on one thing. We need to really narrow our focus down so that we can do the most good possible. So we talk about their intention. I make sure that they're happy with it, that I don't need to make any tweaks to it. They typically get off the call. I go ahead, proceed with the clearing. When I'm done, I make a video of me just going over their clearing notes with them.
Mhm.
And I send them the video and I send them their clearing notes. And I every single time, without fail. Some people it's the same day, some people it's the next day, and they're like, I can't believe I left this in my inbox. And I didn't look at this last night because that was crazy. I didn't think this and I didn't think this, but you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head. And I'm not trying to hit nails on heads. I'm just trying to um encourage you to be self-aware, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. That I think that's what it is. It's encouraging self-awareness. Kind of like me being, them telling me, oh, shame comes up. But it did create a self-awareness in me, and it was something that I worked on.
Right.
So
Right.
now, when that comes up, I'll just use myself as the example. I have a little restorative emotional phrase that I say to myself. I catch it. I nip it in the bud and I move that needle to another track because I'm tired. I'm 50. I'm tired of replaying that same stuff over and over.
Right. Right. It's an old story, old chapter. You're ready for
Mhm.
new.
And it's hard. Most people don't know how to disentangle. And I will say that having done talk therapy for years and getting nowhere because I'm rehashing the same stuff. It's crazy what a game changer.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. So when you're saying that you're muscle testing,
Hmm.
the person is not in the room with you.
No.
You're virtual. So what does that actually look like? You're looking at a chart and I know you like to use both the pendulum and your hands,
Mhm.
very skilled muscle tester. So what kinds of questions are you asking when you're looking for that one emotion like shame? How do you come to that one word?
So I have a binder full of charts and it's broken down into different categories. And so, as I mentioned, the first thing we do is we go through, okay, are there emotional states that need to be, we'll use you as an example. Are there emotional states that need to be cleared for Tracy's intention today? And I do use my pendulum. We call it more like ideomotor testing when you use a pendulum like this, as opposed to using my fingers for muscle testing, just because there's so much to go through. So I asked the emotional state. Do I need to clear emotional states for Tracy's intention? I get a yes or a no. If I get a yes, how many emotional states do I need to clear? And I use my pendulum. I come up with that number. And then I put my finger on the first page of the emotional state charts and I say, is there anything on this chart that I need to clear? I either get a yes or no. Okay. Let's say I get a yes.
Mhm.
There's maybe 5 or 6 columns of emotions going across. Is it this column, this column, this column? Oh, my pendulum gives me a yes on that middle column. I move up. Is it above my finger? No. Is it below my finger? Yes. And then I just run down the list really quick. It's
Mhm.
it's very fast. I think I said it takes me about 75 to 90 minutes to do a clearing, but there are so many charts to go through, beyond the emotional states. There's the limiting beliefs, spiritual blocks, events. Sometimes events come up and I have to figure out what kind of event. Is this a medical event? Is this a family event? Who all was involved? How old were you? And then I have to go through and find the emotional state limiting beliefs around that event.
Mm.
So it's very comprehensive. The amount of information that I get about clients from this it's wild.
And what's really wild about it is I filled out your form and you didn't ask me any of those personal things. It's amazing. It is that external confirmation. It's almost like
Oh,
how you read my mind.
and for example, I did a clearing for someone yesterday and she needed an event clearing and it came up as I believe it was a medical clearing. The age that came up was 25 to 30 years old because I tend to do it in 5-year ranges. It was just herself.
Mm.
And when I read her email back to me this morning, her reply said, that's exactly when all my health started to unravel and I started to have problems that put me in the hospital.
Mm.
I didn't even know she'd been in the hospital ever for any. I mean,
Right.
it's wild. And so I I don't know. I think it's a gift, right? I
Hmm.
think it's an absolute gift to be able to do this for people.
Hmm. Yeah, because it gets to that real root cause.
Mhm. I mean, there are people that I know that have done Reiki clearings, and I'm not bashing Reiki. I'm not bashing any kind of energy work. If that makes you happy, I think it's great. But the big difference for me is when people see my note and they see the areas of support and the things that they need, they're giving a plan of action at the end, right? So they're giving action steps that they can take steps to restoring, holistic health. They're not just getting off a table and walking out and say, see you in a month.
Yeah.
So it's like an ownership thing.
Right. Right. Do you have a client that stands out in your mind as someone who uh, benefited tremendously from a clearing and you have a sort of before and after story? Is there anybody who comes to mind that you can share with us?
Yes. I have a female client who is probably in her 60s and had a bad end to her marriage. And through the clearing, we were able to really get precise about the emotional state, like what she's feeling through. She's not, I mean, beyond anger and beyond just disappointment that this didn't work out. She got to see that there were patterns that she had repeated her whole life with men because she had a narcissistic father.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to help somebody bridge the gap between like, hey, this was my childhood and I'm 60 and I was like, I'm going through this. And is she 100% over this? Absolutely not. But when we speak now, I mean, she's been doing some root cause work and some other stuff with me. but when we speak, she identifies what she's feeling.
Yeah.
She's not just feeling sorry for herself. I'm feeling very lonely today, or whatever it is. And just,
Mhm.
it's almost like that precision of language that you get through doing all the charts and coming up with those phrases has helped her not feel like a
Yeah.
she is beginning to stand in her own power again.
Right. And like you said, what's amazing is that could have taken years of talk therapy to get to identifying what the real emotions were behind it.
Best part, she's a former therapist.
Right.
So, I
Right.
mean, she's just like, this is amazing.
This is her world, and she's still learning something new.
Yes, absolutely. So, and she's just a dear person, and she's gone through a bad spell, and the fact is, she knows it now, and she isn't in despair.
Hmm.
So, I often tell my clients, whether they're working with me for root cause stuff or mind, body, spirit release, I hear often, "Oh, you've given me hope. You make me feel hopeful again." And that's my thing. I'm a hope dealer. I think that we all should have a lot more hope than we do.
Yeah, I love that. Hope dealer.
You can steal it.
I just mine. It's mine. Thanks for permission.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's amazing. That the book, The Body Keeps the Score,
Hmm.
it's like 3 inches thick. And I always tell people, listen, the title says it all. Like if you want all the research, go ahead and read the book, but you can get the idea just from the title. And it's fascinating because you said in the beginning how the mind body spirit release taps into that subconscious
Hmm.
thing. Is I find working with clients and my own personal experiences that we think we know, but we don't really know. And so we need more tools in our tool belt to get down to what's really happening. And we have biases around words. Like, for example, your word with shame, you might have had a bias around that where you would never have volunteered that as, and I don't even like the word label, but as something that you identify with or something that you,
No, I would never have identified, maybe like way, way down inside, but all those layers of
yeah,
shutting doors and not dealing with it. No, no, no.
right. And then somehow that clearing got right to the root, right to the word, brings it to the surface, and somehow it feels okay
Hmm.
because you're getting right to the heart of the matter. And that's what's amazing about root cause work. What's amazing about functional medicine in general is you're trying to get to the reason why. And then we can work on the layers that come from the why after that. And so on the emotional level, but I like what you're saying too. It's not just emotional, it's body as well. And when we address some of the emotions, I mean, you and I could probably talk for hours about body systems and how they come, their dysfunction uh, exhibits in a symptom correlates with an emotion. An emotion can then create a physical symptom in the body. They are so interrelated, it's hard to tell them apart sometimes. And so to expect that particular client to know, oh, my thyroid is because when I was a child, I could never speak. I grew up in this type of family and I wasn't allowed to share my feelings or go through any emotions, and I wasn't allowed to talk, and I was told I was stupid and everything. And in today's world, we would think that is so far-fetched. How could we ever blame a strictly medical condition on a childhood experience? But you and I see this every single day.
Absolutely. And I will tell you that I am trained as a yoga teacher. I taught group classes for years. And, anger and bitterness in the liver, and then just lots of negative emotions and anger in the hips. And I could be teaching a hip opener class, and inevitably there would be some woman weeping on her mat, and I would just run over with a box of Kleenex. But it prepared me to understand that there are emotions associated with every body system, every organ. So yes, there are charts that we go through for body systems, organs, glands, tissues, because it's not just in your head or wherever you think your subconscious lives, your heart. I don't know, but it is physical, and those things do manifest physical symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So this can help us just sort of shortcut the process to get
Yes,
to, like I keep saying, the root so that it can be dealt with and truly healed from the inside out.
yes. And I mean,
Which,
you think, what do we always say? Toxicity creates deficiency. Why is it that we only think that that is a pathogen or a chemical
mm-hmm,
bacteria? How is it not that there there have to be toxic emotions? I mean, I think there have to be.
mm-hmm,
There has to be, toxic experiences, and those negatively imprint on our subconscious. So to me, it's not just about killing pathogens. I do think that's absolutely necessary, but it's about moving them out of the body in many ways and on all levels.
mm-hmm. And we're not just physical beings living
Nope.
in this body. We are spiritual beings. We are emotional bodies. And so all these things interact. So we could, you and I know this, but if somebody's deficient in vitamin D, they could take bottles upon bottles of vitamin D and never actually fix their vitamin D deficiency because we know there's so much more to this picture. And so it's the same way if you're not looking at it from all these different angles, are you ever really going to get to the root of it? So the best chance then at holistic healing is to come at it with lots of tools in the tool belt.
The most tools possible.
And everybody needs
Absolutely.
something different.
Oh, absolutely. Just as you know, when you're creating protocols for clients, not everybody needs the exact same 4 things to get through parasite. Some people are
Mhm.
more sensitive. So it's the same thing. Action steps, the action steps, there's one action step. Let me backtrack and explain to people that after the clearing is done, I go through my charts and I come up with restorative emotions, right? So we're taking away these negative emotions, we're taking away these limiting beliefs and imprints, and I muscle test. And it's typically 2 or 3 restorative emotions, and there's something positive, freedom, vivacious, whatever it is, right? So we want to put something positive back in, kind of fill in those spaces and take up
Yeah.
space where the negative stuff was.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, we do action steps. So just like when you go to the physical therapist and they say, oh, it's this with your knee, go do these exercises at home, but come back next week. There's exercises to do at home, right? And sometimes it's as simple as a gratitude journal. Sometimes it's castor oil pack over the liver, especially if someone's got a lot of bitterness and anger that's coming up. But the one action step that comes up most frequently is the Ho'oponopono prayer. And
Walk us through that.
it's 4 lines. It's a Hawaiian prayer. And the first time I heard this, I thought, this is really, really like weird. But I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And so sometimes that comes up as the client that's receiving the clearing. This is something that they need to say. They need to close their eyes, put a hand over their heart, a hand over their belly, and just say this for themselves. And sometimes it's a person from your past, or something comes up and you just need to put it out into the world and hope that the people that you need to hear this are going to
Mm-hmm.
energetically receive it. But it's I love that. And that is the action step that comes up most frequently.
Say it one more time.
Okay, so it's called, in case anybody wants to look it up, it's a Ho, and it's HO apostrophe Oponopono prayer. And it is, I'm sorry, please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
That's amazing.
And it's amazing because there are times when my husband and I, we don't argue, but every now and then we just get our wires crossed or somebody's tired, whatever, or had a bad day. And, they naturally will take it out on the person that's there.
Hmm.
So when I've been guilty of that, I do. I apologize, but I go around a little bit and, for the next day or two, I kind of say that and send it to him.
Yeah.
And I hope that he received it.
Yeah. Right, right, right. I could totally see sometimes it's a message for ourselves.
Absolutely.
And other times it's a message we need to send to somebody else.
And so when I test for action steps and this comes up, I'm asking, is this for self or is
Mm.
this for another? So that people know.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Right.
there's a difference, between closing your eyes, placing a hand over your heart and your belly and kind of internalizing that. And then there's a difference between I thinking it and sending it out.
Yeah. 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 Let's go through my clearing. I've got my notes in front of me, and
All
I
right.
love to share like how this went for me because you and I met last week, and this is the first time I've ever done mind, body, spirit release. With that said, when I had my own health journey of 5 years of something mysterious that I had a very difficult time getting to the bottom of, I tried everything. So
Okay.
at this point in my life, you could tell me to paint my face black and sprinkle fairy dust on the grass, and that was going to heal me. And I just might believe you.
Right.
I always tell people you're you're um you're as open as you are desperate because I came to the place for my own experience where I was so desperate to get my health back, so desperate to think straight, so desperate to wake up in the morning and feel normal, so desperate to just get back to my life as a mom without being obsessed with why do I have this headache? This is such a weird headache. It's in the back of my head, but it's on the left side. What does that mean? And my mind went in all these rabbit trails and I self-diagnosed myself with about everything under the sun. I flew all over the country, saw all kinds of doctors. I did all the research. I read all the books. I felt like I did just about everything. And part of that was a lot of energetic healing because I was so desperate. I was open to anything. And lots of muscle testing, lots of machine, lots of intuitives. I mean, all kinds of things.
Mhm.
So when the idea came across is like, why don't I do a clearing session with you? It was like, great. I love this kind of stuff. It seems familiar to me and I have seen benefit in my own life from it. And so I am like wide open, like, yeah, no expectations. I wonder what she's going to say. And so when we got started, you tested me and you gave me a number. And my number initially was 175. And you gave me the word demanding. And
Mhm.
I remember you asked me, are you demanding of yourself or are you demanding of others? And I was like, maybe both. Um, and so what does that 175 mean? Like what is that range? Where did I fall? Is that on the low end?
It's on the low end, and the point is, no matter how low you start on the scale, that after the clearing, you move up the scale. So we call it the resonance. Your resonance before, and then after the clearing is done, we test your resonance after. And so remember that this resonance at 175 was for this intention. It wasn't for Tracy as a whole person.
Mm-hmm.
It was around this intention. And the easiest way to explain it is you've probably been at a party or something and somebody walks in and they have maybe a really big person. We might say they have a really big personality, but they just have this energy, this energetic field that really stretches beyond them and it kind of bumps up against other people. Your energetic field at 175 was, pretty close to yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. And then the word demanding, was that the emotion? Is
It
demanding an emotion? What does that mean?
it can be an emotion. I tend to think of these as adjectives to describe the state. So when
Hmm.
I look, Dr. David Hawkins wrote a book called Power versus Force. And these numbers, I believe that Tracy has kind of tweaked some of the words that are associated with these numbers um, on the scale, but it starts at a 30 and it goes up to 1,000. And so who was 1,000? Jesus, the Buddha,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
Mm-hmm.
we always want to go as high as possible, but he and Tracy came up with these words to describe the emotional state of the person that might be hanging out at this frequency.
Yeah.
So if, for example, 1,000, I'm getting enlightenment, pure consciousness, right? And
Right.
the very lowest number is 20 and it's miserable, humiliation, right? Nobody
Mm-hmm.
wants to live in that.
Right.
So there's a few words associated with each number, and I just muscle test to see A, do I need to include a word? B, if I do, what is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So your body gave me that information just through muscle
Right.
test.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's sort of like the starting point. This is the story. So then you had this intention for me and you read this to me and you asked me, does this feel right? And it was, I am now at all times with grace and ease, vibrantly healthy and energetic in all ways. I easily recognize my vast knowledge and feel confident in my practice. My mind, body, and spirit are kept in perfect, peaceful harmony without any adverse effects from this clearing. I know all of this to be true, and for all of this, I am grateful. When you read that to me, to which I was like, yes and amen. Okay, I don't know how you came up with that, but that sounds good. And what was interesting to me too is maybe it's the way that I interpreted this or read it. It felt much more applicable to my professional life than like my personal life. And then as you began to unfold some of the emotions, the mixes, the limiting beliefs, they were all centered around the professional world for me as well. And as I ruminated on all of that over the course of the weekend, it was just fascinating for me to, like you said, self-awareness, to really hone in on where am I stuck? Where are my energies stuck? And how can I pick up that needle and move it to a different place? And you and I were talking about before we started the recording, the place that we're at as mothers, even though we still do have some younger kids at home, we have these decades of experience before us. And it sometimes feels like autopilot. It's sometimes not that new challenges don't come, but it sometimes, feels like, yeah, we got this in the bag. Like I've been doing this for so long. I don't trip over the same obstacles that I used to trip over because there is a certain amount of experience and expertise that comes from doing the same thing every single day. Well, the business side of me is still so new. And the health practitioner, how do I actually communicate health and healing in a holistic way to this person who is suffering? It is also going to take decades till I feel like I have reached some sort of expert status if I ever get there. And so for this to be applicable to that part of me felt like, yeah, this is where I spend the most of my ruminating thoughts. This is where I spend the most of my stuck emotions, because it all still feels um, unpredictable, little insecurities, what's going to happen here, whereas maybe some of the other identifiers that I have in my life, like a wife and a mom or something, that they feel pretty secure and set. So I just thought that was interesting. So our session really ended up focusing on that part of me.
Yeah.
And so that's good for me to know, like this is the energy I'm coming to the world with, and these are the things that I need to rewire. So for me, my four emotions were the envy, frightened, lack of belief, and unsure, to which I was like, well, of course I identify with all those. Like they just were like, all right. I don't know. Have you been reading my diary? Um, I don't have a diary anymore, but I don't think people call them diaries anymore.
I think they call them journals now.
Journals.
Journal. But in the
So
form,
you remember Dear Diary?
yes, and I had one with a lock and key.
Yes, me too.
And it had like cute little squirrels and stuff, a very cute kind of Beatrix Potter type
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I don't think anything ever happened worth writing about, but whatever.
No, it was things like, Johnny was so mean to me today.
Yeah.
Will I ever dot dot dot? It was like, I don't know. I always felt like I was talking to the clouds, like some experience way out there. Uh yeah. Okay. So anyway, yeah, I identified with those four emotions for sure. And so you're at that point, then you're going over the list of them, you're muscle testing, and these are the ones to cure. These are the ones that are like, this is a yes.
These are the ones that came up as needing to be cleared for this intention. Like I said, we could write an intention for pain in your left foot to clear it up. And we're going to test your resonance and we're going to get a completely different number. And we're going to run through emotions and get something completely different.
Oh, that's fascinating. So all this is centered around this intention.
This intention. So for example, I frequently do clearings for myself. And right now I have, I think, 3 intentions that I'm clearing. Because at the end, when can this person have another clearing? Is it a matter of days? Is it a matter of weeks? Oh, 3 weeks. I mark my calendar and I typically on a Saturday or Sunday morning, come out to my office with my coffee and I do my clearing. So I'm working on 3 different things, 3 different intentions for myself right now. And, there's a business related one, kind of like this one is for you. And then there's a health one. And then there's an emotional one that I'm working through.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so there's no part of you that is off the table then. And then I love that. I didn't realize that. So this is all centered around this
intention. Yes, about you. There was something that you had said in your intake form, about stress or always thinking about your practice, whatever it was. And so that's what inspired this intention. So yes, all of this is about you becoming the practitioner that feels confident. And I mean, I know you feel confident in what you do, but leave that second guessing, that little voice kind of turns down the volume on the little voice is, I think, how I would put it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, okay, so then you found these 3 limiting beliefs. And I love this too, because I can tend to be driven by passion, inspiration, emotion, but yet I have a very scientific, logical side to me. So, both thoughts appealed to me, that like you found these limiting beliefs, but it was like you were just tapping into my subconscious, reading it off of a chart. You didn't think to yourself, I wonder what she has a hard time with, and then conjured it up in your own mind.
No, this is strictly me communicating with your subconscious energetically.
Yeah. Yeah. So my 3 limiting beliefs at this present time were: I don't deserve to be successful, I have a fear of success, and I cannot have everything I want. And I think you told me in my video that that was specific to money and support. Yes. So that's fascinating, because like, I cannot have everything I want could be anything. It could be time. It could be,
it could be time to put into your business or more time to spend with your kids. I mean, it could be anything, because think about it. You and I both have kids at home and we homeschool. And so sometimes when we're putting time into our business, we're taking that time away from our husbands and our families. And so it could be anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you said those, I was like, yeah, okay. These are the ones that when I'm closing my eyes and I'm practicing deep breathing, when I'm in my sauna, as I'm going to sleep at night, when I go into a time of prayer, when I'm on a long walk, I want to revisit these things and pick up the needle and move it to a different place. And the benefit of that is it now gives me a focus.
Yeah.
So many people are like,
Absolutely.
I just want to feel better. But like, what does that mean? How ambiguous could that be?
Mhm.
You know? Or like, I want to lose weight. Okay. Like, now what? Like, how much? In what way? And what do you want to do to get there? And it's like,
And
uh,
more importantly, why? Like, is it because you
yeah,
want to be
why?
able to move your body more easily? Is it because you want to look better in a swimsuit? I mean, those are all valid reasons, right? Is it because
Right.
you want your doctor to get off your back about taking a statin? All valid reasons.
Yes.
But having that specificity, I think, changes things. Like when you're working and building a business, we can get caught up in listening to this podcast or reading this book and getting all these ideas about how to do this in our business and how to do this in our business. And this is telling you right now, this is where you're limited. It's not that you need to go
Yep.
buy another book or pay for another program,
Yes.
right?
Right. Right. It helps me to focus in on, and then I could ask myself, okay, self, when and where are you repeating that I don't deserve to be successful? And I can go to that moment. I can go to that whole thought pattern. I can go to the feelings that come from that, the beliefs that lead to those feelings, the thoughts that get me there. And I can restructure that from the
Yeah.
beginning and rewire. We keep saying rewire. Yeah. And then I have to ask myself, like, do I really believe that I can't have everything I want? And then I'm like, well, yeah.
But that's that limiting belief, right? So
Yeah.
this is belief that's in your subconscious. It doesn't mean that you, Tracy,
Right.
today believe that, but it's that little inner voice that when you were a kid told you this, something that you experienced, put this in the subconscious, and your subconscious is trying to act that out.
Yep. Right. 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 You might tell your clients this too, but I always say we store our issues in our tissues.
Yes.
Same thing about the body keeping the score. It's like, yep, and those thoughts do manifest themselves in a variety of ways, whether we're aware of them or not.
Okay. Well, speaking of that book, because you brought it up twice, I'm a very fast reader. I can read a book a week, easily nonfiction. That one took me 6 months to get through because it was just so heavy.
Yeah.
But if anybody's read the book, when he talks about the Holocaust survivors and it created issues in their grandchildren, right? In their heirs.
Hmm.
And it's the same thing. Oh, some of the stuff, if you go through the charts, it's not ours. It's
Hmm.
generational. And sometimes a generational clearing will come up, in the what is it they in the Bible? It's the sins of the father will be visited
Yeah.
on the son for 7 generations, right?
Right.
Same. I
Yeah.
that stuff is like a miasm and it kind of like puts a little code on your DNA
Yeah.
and it travels through family lines until somebody's willing to do something about it.
Right. Right. And that's the empowering thought is that we can do something about it.
Yes.
Yeah. So then you muscle tested for hormones, for neurotransmitters, for organs, glands, and tissues, for even body systems. So
Mhm.
it's like now you got the spirit and the mind part, and now you're even addressing the physical body part. Well, actually, and then the spirit comes.
Mhm.
Looking at my notes here. So um, taking on the energy of others, that's always something that I have struggled with. Self-punishment, that's really fascinating to me because I have to dig deep and go, in what ways? And it just makes me curious, and I
Right.
feel like I tell my clients that all the time. You need to approach everything about your life, your health, your healing, everything with curiosity. Because the moment you just come down with a judgment stick, you're done.
Yeah.
So approach it with the, oh, that's fascinating. And look at it like from a um, external, objective viewer of this situation, as opposed to, because otherwise you have all your biases. Otherwise you have all your things and you've already decided, well, this isn't true about me. And then you say stop because you're not willing to be curious about, oh, fascinating. In what ways do I do that?
And the funny thing is, for however many clearings I've done, I've never had anybody say, no, that's not me. Because
Yeah.
I expected it, I keep waiting. I don't want it. But everybody has always been very positive, like, wow, I don't know how you knew that, or, whatever it was. But everybody has related to or connected to what I was trying to light on for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, and then you gave me three paradigms, and I wanted to
Mhm.
ask more questions about what the paradigms are. So mine were parenting, spiritual, and work. So what are the paradigms when those come up?
A paradigm is a deeply rooted belief system, right?
Okay.
We get paradigms from our parents. There's cultural paradigms, all the things that ways that you have influenced the way that you believe about something. So
Yes.
parenting paradigm.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, you I don't know if your mother was a role model for you, or, if it's something that you got from a grandmother or a great aunt, but that's one that came up for you. So you have a pattern of belief about parenting and the way that you want to parent.
Mm-hmm.
And Betty over there can parent however she wants to, but this is my way. That's
Yeah.
how I think of it.
Yeah. Right, right. Yeah, it's an entire system.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, because all three of those I have a lot of, I bring to the table a lot of preconceived notions, presuppositions, theories, experience. Those, yeah, in my mind, those particular things are not like, well, I was going to say up for discussion, but that makes me sound closed-minded, and I don't think that would describe me either. But I feel very settled
No,
in
I understand.
the,
Because for me,
yeah.
I can say that, like, my idea of parenting, my parenting paradigm is very settled. But I always go back and I have tried to teach my kids that we can talk about our differences with people. We may never change their mind. They may never change your mind, but we can respect each other's differences and still be friends. Right. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
we have lovely friends that they're just wonderful people, but we have very different parenting paradigms.
Mm-hmm.
It would make merging the two families to go on a vacation might be a challenge, but
Yeah.
it's it is what it is. I don't think it's a negative thing though.
Yeah. Right, 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 right. Yeah. No, and it's good. It's so good to put words around things. Especially when you have like an internal knowing for them to be true. It's like scaffolding helps, frameworks help, roadmaps help because it like all of a sudden provides some container to discuss it and to
Yeah.
identify it. And all of a sudden
Mhm.
you're like, okay, now we can discuss something that doesn't feel so ambiguous anymore.
Right.
Okay. And so then there was relationship, meridians, elements, and miasms. I mean, there you gave me like 5 pages of wonderful information here. Interferences. This
So
is
those,
really amazing. So what do you find when those come up?
well, I mean, I will be honest. Let's see, yours was the dental and then an internal slash self and then toxin heavy metal glyphosate radiation, right? I get the toxin heavy
Mhm.
metal glyphosate radiation a lot. What comes up often with interferences are scar tissues. tattoos, piercings, believe it or not. Because remember, we are energetic being able to muscle test someone or use a pendulum to muscle test from a distance. And so scar tissue, things like that, dental surgery. I don't know what your oral health history is. I thought dental was interesting. I didn't know if you've had root canals or maybe you had fillings removed. I don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
that definitely came up as an interference for you. And I was trying to remember, did you also have a sinus? And no, that was not you. For some reason, I thought you might have had a sinus. Yes, you did on your four body system. I'm so sorry. Yes, you did. A sinus slash oral came up for you.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I just think there's something dental going on. And I know you muscle test, you can noodle around it and figure out what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you know, and so that's one of those things where if somebody came back to me and said, I really, really appreciated this, I think this is interesting, I really want to know what's driving this dental thing,
Right.
then I can noodle around for them and say, okay, is this a root canal that needs to be removed? Is this an infected tooth? Is this, I mean,
Right.
there's any number of things, but you can use that to get a little more toward the root of what is causing that.
To dig deeper
Yeah.
and get more specific.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, when yours came up as toxin, heavy metal, glyphosate, and radiation, and I go, okay, what's going on with, I see what's really driving this? And it came up as glyphosate.
Mm-hmm.
Me and everybody else in the country. But
Yeah.
like, will we ever be rid of it? Um, then that's why I underlined that one like that, because I wanted you to know that I had
Yeah.
identified exactly what it was.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. And then the second to the last part before my action steps are the piecing together the drainage funnel. Like you and I use the model in a physical sense where we say, okay, people, if you're going to detoxify your body correctly, there is an order of operations and we have to start pulling. And when these things get backed up, then the overflow here is an expression of symptoms in the body. And so my impression of what this is doing is taking that same drainage funnel with the organ systems and then saying, when these things are blocked in some way, then we're getting an overflow. And for me, it looks like in the liver, it's this thought that it's beyond my control.
It's that limited.
The limiting belief comes in. And how do you tie that particular limiting belief then to that organ system?
So there's for each, so it is the exact same drainage funnel that we use for the physical
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And then for each system, you know, there's one or two limiting beliefs, and then there's emotions. The emotion that came up for you was inefficient. And so I don't know what that means to you. That's up to you to interpret. But is your liver not working efficiently?
Mm,
Are your ways of handling emotions at the liver processors? Those are things like anger, resentment,
mm,
bitterness. Is that inefficient? Um,
right.
and is it just inefficient at clearing physical toxins, right?
Right.
It
Right.
it could be any number of things. I tend to look at this. And so when I'm working with clients that aren't doing mind body spirit release sessions with me, they're strictly for labs and root cause work. I will often go through at every appointment their drainage funnel and just see what's going on and
Mm-hmm.
just support the clearing of the drainage funnel from, you know, this emotional slash spiritual perspective. Because we're doing the work of taking advanced kudka or whatever it is that we're supporting the drainage funnel with.
Mm-hmm.
This just adds another extra layer
Mm-hmm.
of
Yeah.
clearing and allowing everything in there to flow freely.
Yeah. Yeah. And a far more holistic approach to add in the emotions than to, if no other reason, but there's a thousand reasons. but just to raise the awareness. Like when you put a name to something, it just, yeah, it brings that laser focus that is helpful. It's helpful to zero in on that, to meditate on that, to think about that, to visualize the clearing of that, like to literally watch that emotion wash away from the body, eliminate from the body, become unstuck. Like, you know that book, Biology of Belief?
Yes, I love
Y-
that.
Yes, yes, so good, right? I remember the stories from that book about, you know, spinal cord injuries and then walking again, like miraculous
Mhm.
healing type scenarios. And what my main takeaway from that book and all of the teachings that come from that is just how we limit ourselves. And if we can become limitless, then really there is nothing stopping us from excellent health in mind, body, and soul. And so this to me like helps shine the flashlight on those areas where it's like, oh, if you could unstick this, if you could clear this, if you could reset this, we are inching our way toward the clearing of all of these self-imposed limitations, whether we know it or not, because there's conscious and unconscious.
So funny story. Do you remember at Eco when they did the demo with the ME supports? I think it was the back of the neck, or and then
Yeah.
to release the frozen shoulder. So there's a chart that I have that's it's the spinal chart and the nerves off the spine. And so you can go through and test to see what's going on. But being able to tell a client ME support on T1 and
Right.
just see what happens.
Yeah.
And that thing that they have been feeling and that has just been driving them crazy to the point where they're moving around, trying to get at it, just disappears.
Yeah.
It's it's powerful stuff.
It's very, very powerful. Yeah. So my action steps were breath work 2 times a day for 3 minutes. And especially since Eco, I'm like totally into this because of Patel's work with us there and everything that I've read about it since in that book by James Nestor.
Breath, yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's like it's opening, it's blowing my mind on so many levels. And infrared sauna, which I have available to me. So, and I do love that as the modality. And then the lymphatic drainage. So, all these things are like they're detoxification tools, they're clearing tools, like clearing the breath. You know what was fascinating at Eco from Patel's talk was about how when we lose weight, 90% of it comes through the breath.
Isn't that amazing? But most people breathe improperly. As a yoga teacher, it used to just throw me for a loop to watch these grown-ups laying in Shavasana breathing, and they're breathing like, how newborn babies breathe? That little butterfly breath right here, and it's very shallow. And it just like teaching people to breathe all the way down,
Hmm.
like as though you're filling up a glass of water, right? You're going to breathe in the same, inhale in the same way. So you're filling up from the bottom to the top. You're filling up with breath from the bottom to the top. And
Yeah.
then when you're exhaling, it'd be like pouring out the glass of water from bottom. And
Yeah.
but it's also besides the in and out and into the belly, if we think about breath is also supposed to be three-dimensional, right? We need that expansion forward. We need that expansion of the intercostal muscles in the ribs. It's breath is an amazing tool.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, I really cannot wait to learn much more about that, and to incorporate it into my personal life and my practice. But all three of those were just like, yep, yep, yep. Okay, they're all nurturing, but they're also, um, the way that the framework I'm thinking of them in is like they're tools for release.
Yeah, but not just the toxins, not just the
Yeah.
physical detox, but the mental, emotional,
The
spiritual.
mental emotion.
Mhm.
So then you gave me these three words, which were my restorative emotions to kind of focus on and put some thought, some, you know, uh, some real intention behind these three being consistent, nurtured, and vivacious. And my video told me, it helps to write them on a post-it note or somewhere you're going to see them regularly throughout the day so they can kind of become like a banner for the time being that I come back to, that I remind myself of, that I replace the demanding parts with these things which feel there's a, like you started with the word calm. And that's how I could express it as well. It feels calming. It feels peaceful to think about these words. There's no like effort behind them. There's just that ease. It's the flow. And
It should feel
you know,
calming. It should feel easy. It should feel soft. Like it should make you feel like you're landing on a soft feather bed, like kind of coming home into yourself. Because
yeah,
I can tell you the clearing that I did when she pinpointed shame for me.
yeah.
She gave me a sentence to say to myself. But years later, I still say that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, it's I live and walk in abundance.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't about, abundance of money,
Mm-hmm.
but it was an abundance of love. Like I always felt very unloved as a child. And so learning to find abundant love, joy, time, freedom to do the things that I want to do, whether it's to take my girls to the pool or whether to, do some work. So that little phrase was one that came out of my restorative emotions. And I still say it to myself every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I've got these three words on post-it notes in my bathroom, on my computer, and also in the kitchen. So I am looking at them regularly and trying to pick that needle up and move it over to these things so that I can embody being consistent, being nurtured, and being vivacious, which is like a super sexy word to me.
But it's funny because we've known each other for a while, but just meeting for the first time a couple of weeks ago, I would like the consistent and the vivacious. That's Tracy.
Oh,
I don't know what the rest of your life is. I don't know enough about your day-to-day life to know if you're nurtured, physically, mentally, and
yeah.
all that stuff. But those two words were things that if someone had said, "Hey, do you know anyone that's consistent or vivacious?" I could have easily filled you in that blank right there.
Oh, I take that as a compliment. Thank
You
you.
should. Mm-hmm.
All right. So in 5 weeks, I'm going to have my next clearing.
Yes,
So
I
we'll
look forward
see.
to it.
We will see
And
where
so we'll talk and we'll talk about the intention that I had created for you. And then we'll see like how much stuff has shifted, because sometimes we use the exact same intention because maybe people haven't done their homework. Um, and then some people, things are beginning to shift and we just kind of tweak the intention to meet them where they are, just like you would tweak a protocol to meet somebody where they are.
exactly, exactly. I love it.
I'm glad.
Um, yeah, it's such a beautiful work. So you're on Instagram, you've got a website, you've got your own practice. Where can people find you if this is resonating with them and they're like, I've got to have a session? How can they get in touch with you, Amanda?
The easiest way is Instagram. I have a little Instagram habit. Pop into my DMs if you'd like. My handle is Mays, it's Mays Wellness. I'm the same handle on TikTok. My kid convinced me to get on TikTok. It's going okay.
Yeah, for you.
And then contact form on my website. It's amandamays.net.
Perfect. Okay. All right. And I'll put all that information in the show notes too so people can book a session with you. Um, Here's something that I ask everyone on this podcast, and I'm curious to know, what is one thing that you do to support your health on a daily basis?
I only can pick one.
I know it's hard to limit it just to one. What's your favorite one?
Yeah, my favorite one is morning and evening walks with my dog.
Hmm.
I for the longest time thought walking is just not going to do anything for me. It's not exercise,
Me too.
just movement. It's not going to move any needles.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just put my earbuds in and I don't listen to anything because I don't want to talk. I live in the deep south and everybody wants to stop and talk.
Mm.
Sometimes I'm listening to a podcast, but just, being outside, being in fresh air, and even at this time of year, sweating my tokas off, I
Mm-hmm.
will take that's my happy place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Well, I know you've got a lot of healthy habits because I see them in your stories on a daily basis. You've got your reishi mushroom king coffee, you've got your red light, all kinds of things. So I know that's tough just to pick one, but
No, but I'm transitioning to Rasa thanks to you.
I know, I know.
I'm
Love
enjoying it.
it too. I'm
Yeah.
loving it too. Yeah. Anything to help the cortisol levels in our bodies, anything to be adaptogenic for the stress response, I'm all for. Sign me up.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because sometimes when things come up on a clearing and adrenals come up and cortisol comes up, and the person's like, but I'm not really a stressed out person. I think your body and your nervous system and
Hmm.
your subconscious are telling me something very different. But I think in this world that we live in and
Yeah.
all the stuff that's going on, you can't support cortisol levels and adrenaline. And even walking, a leisurely walk in the evening after dinner is a great way to just kind of you can make it a walking meditation. You can put your tongue at the top of your mouth and just do some breathing, and that will help reset that.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a game changer.
Hmm.
Totally. Yeah.
I
Well,
love that you're so into breath now. Pick that up like that.
like, no, I did not expect that to be my favorite takeaway from Eco this year. And it definitely was. I don't know. Sometimes, they say, what do they say? What's that quote? When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Because I've known the benefits of breath work. I've taught the benefits of breath work. But for some reason, right now, it's meaningful to me on a new level.
Because he took it from the abstract. I know this is good. I know what to do. And he brought
Yeah.
it into the concrete. And you got
Yeah.
to feel the effects of it in a group of like, what, 1,000 people? That was pretty
Yeah.
powerful.
That was powerful too. All doing the same thing together. It's that collective consciousness.
Yeah,
You can feel it. It's palpable,
it is.
which spurs you on for then doing it alone in your bedroom, or by yourself on a walk. It's like, okay, I am a part of something bigger, and it's
Mhm.
very motivating.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I loved this conversation with you. We'll have to talk in the future much more about practicalities of mothering and working a business at the same time.
And
And
homeschooling.
homeschooling, we've got so much in common that we will
Yeah,
have to share stories with. So let's get that scheduled at some point in the future. But this is wonderful.
I
Thank
would love.
you for my own session.
Yeah,
And I just can't wait to refer my own clients to you and to see all the lives that you're going to bring more healing to through this practice. So thank you so much.
thank
And
you for bringing attention to this work because I just love it, and I'm happy to be able to share it with a wider audience.
yes, I love that. I love that. All right. Well, if you'd like to get in touch with Amanda, you'll find her information in the show notes. Please go to her Instagram, give her a follow, book a session with her. You won't regret it, I promise. And I will see you next time on Tracy Erin Talks. Thank you for joining me today on Tracy Erin Talks. I hope you found today's episode enriching to your life. If you enjoyed today's content, would you consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving a review? That simple act helps this podcast get into the hands and ears of many more women just like you. Remember, anything you want and do not yet have will require a new set of beliefs, thoughts, actions, and a new you. I am honored to be on this journey with you as we wholeheartedly pursue true health and wellness in mind, body, and soul.